similar to mine. His wife Barbara gave us all good luck ties a few days ago, and I'm sleeping in mine for the next 5 days until this thing is over with. You know, as I've traveled throughout this district, and I love to go to plants and learn about industry, what those folks are doing, and my favorite question to ask is always, who are your competitors? And whether you're in Bald Knob or Little Rock or in White County, the answer is always the same. People always know their competitors. It's not Arkadelphia or Pine Bluff or Fayetteville. The competitors are Malaysia and Japan and China and the Philippines and Brazil and Mexico and Canada. That's true for all of us in Arkansas. And what we know in this election and what Governor Clinton taught us many years ago is that is the future, to learn to compete with those folks. And that's what so many of us in the state Senate and the state legislature and in state government and school teachers and parents have been working on for all these years. And that's what this election is about, is preparing our families and our kids to compete in this world. Now, we also know we got to pay for that stuff. Schools cost money. Drug-free schools cost money. Safe neighborhoods cost money. And so this election is also about who's going to do the best job at balancing this budget, achieving fiscal responsibility, but keeping track and keeping our sights on those things that are important, preparing our families and our kids for competition. And one little specific thing in all this is the Medicare budget that Senator Bumpers was talking about. You know, as a family doctor, I know Medicare has prolonged life, it has improved quality of life, it must be preserved. And I think, frankly, the Republicans feel that way, though, too. But if they really wanted to put their money where their mouth is, they would not have taken all that money out of Medicare to fund a tax cut that this country can't afford at this time, and it was the wrong way to go about doing it. I've been touring the last couple of weeks several of our small-town hospitals. Ooh. And it was in Jacksonville a few days ago, talking with that hospital administrator, and we had a local newspaper with us. And that administrator looked at that reporter and said, you need to understand, these were real dollars. Those cuts would have affected this hospital's ability to invest in its future, to buy MRIs, to complete construction, to build better OB facilities, all the kind of things that small town hospitals need and small towns need. He knew it was real dollars. Unfortunately, the current Congress did not know what those impacts would have meant for small town America, and it's time to send somebody to Congress that will know, and I'll be glad to be that person. Let me say also a point about, our President Clinton doesn't live in Arkansas right now, and he hasn't had to witness some of the campaign last week, but my campaign has kind of turned into an ugly sucker, and some of you out there have known it. And of course, there have been a lot of things that have been said that just flat out have been outrageous and insulting and not true, but the most recent one was 8 days ago that a vote for Vic Snyder would somehow lead to communism, which I didn't quite understand. I see this man down here with his Veterans for Clinton Gore with the USMC. This is my kind of guy here, having been an ex-Marine and a Vietnam veteran. But I don't know who writes my opponent's material, but somebody should have told him that communists tried to kill me in 1968 and 69, and we've not had a very close relationship since that time. But why is he saying, why are they having to say all these outrageous and insulting things? I mean, they're getting desperate. Why are they desperate? You'd be desperate too if you're wrong on education, wrong on Head Start, wrong on student loans, wrong on Medicare, wrong on the environment, wrong on the direction this country needs to go. Please elect me, please vote for me, and I'll be the kind of congressman that you'll be proud of. And I've got to make one special observation here. You know, there are 435 congressional districts, and everyone's important to President Clinton. But Mr. President, you can only vote in one. And I would like your vote, Mr. President. Thank you very much. It's now my great pleasure to introduce Winston Bryant. I've previously introduced him as Susan's husband, but I want you to know, as somebody who's been in the state Senate for 5.5 years, the job that Winston Bryant has done in just the everyday stuff that you all don't see in terms of helping us draft laws that improve the quality of life, whether it's victims' rights legislation or consumer rights legislation, or just improving the quality of the legal system of Arkansas. Winston Bryant has been an excellent Attorney General, and I'm proud to introduce the next U.S. Senator from Arkansas, Winston Bryant.
Thank you, Vic. It's tremendous to be in Little Rock and see so many Democrats in one place, huh? It's a great day to be a Democrat. And I know it's already been done, but Mr. President, I want to welcome you to your home state, the great state of Arkansas. President Clinton has done an outstanding job as president. We're very proud of his record, and based on his record, he deserves to be reelected. Despite the unfair attacks by the National Republicans, President Clinton will be reelected. They're using the same tactics in the United States Senate race. The National Republican Party will spend about $5 million to try to buy this Senate seat. Most of that money has been used in negative attack ads against me. Friends, on November the 5th, let's send the National Republican Party a message. And that is, this Senate seat in Arkansas is not for sale. I'm sick and tired of the National Republicans using Whitewater and the special prosecutor to bash and belittle our president in the state of Arkansas. We need to move this country forward. That's the issue, not engage in gutter politics. Friends, this is a very crucial election on November the 5th. Extremely crucial. I am seeking to replace a legend, a great senator from the state of Arkansas, Senator David Pryor. This election on November the 5th is not about the past, it's about the future. It's about adequate health care for our seniors. And this Republican Congress tried to make substantial cuts in Medicare. If you'll send me to the United States Senate, I'll work with the President to ensure that our seniors have adequate health care now and in the future. This election is about educating our kids. And I come at education from a personal standpoint. My wife, Susan, is a teacher in the Malvern Public Schools. See a fan. And we need to support our teachers, contrary to the National Republican. This is about educating our kids this election on November the 5th. And this Republican Congress tried to cut student loans by $10.2 billion. Those are the wrong priorities. Send me to the United States Senate and I'll work to ensure that our kids have an education second to none. Friends, this election is about how we treat our veterans. And this Republican Congress tried to gut veterans programs. I'm a veteran, I'll support our veterans, and I'll work with the President to ensure that this country fulfills its commitment to our veterans. Firefighters also. Mr. President, we have never been so proud of you when you stood tall last year and blocked Republican legislation to cut Medicare, student loans, and veterans appropriations. When Vic Snyder and I are elected to the Congress and the Senate, Mr. President, you won't have to veto legislation to protect our seniors and our students and our veterans. I'm going to be an independent senator, an independent Democrat that follows in the tradition of Senator David Pryor and put you, the state of Arkansas, first. Thank you. I need your vote and support on November the 5th. And the moment we've been waiting for, Arkansans, it's a great honor for me to present to you one of our native sons, Bill Clinton, President of the United States. Thank you. 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 Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let me say it's good to be home, and thank you for coming out to say hello. I want to thank the Parkview High School Band, the Central High School Band, the Little Rock Community Choir. I want to thank all those who are up here on the platform with me. I don't have everybody's name up here. I don't know if I can remember without eyes in the back of my head. I never needed eyes in the back of my head till I moved to Washington. I'm glad to be here today. I have just come from a great rally in front of the Alamo in San Antonio, and we were in El Paso, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, California, and the day before that. I'm on my way back across the country from here to New Orleans and then on to Florida. But I wanted to stop here just to be with you once before this election, to say a special word of thanks to my good friend David Pryor for his lifetime of service to our state, to Congressman Ray Thornton for his lifetime of service, and to wish him well in his new service on the Supreme Court. Thank you, Ray. I thank my good friend Dale Bumpers. Folks, I don't know what I'd have done the last 4 years if it hadn't been for Dale and David up there, keeping me sane in the tough times, standing up for you and for what was right, and never being intimidated by some of the most overbearing and destructive tactics I have ever seen coming from the other side. I want to thank Sharon Priest and Lottie Shackelford and Julia Peck Mobley and Gus Wingfield, Charlie Daniels, Mayor Daley, Mayor Hayes, Judge Valines. Thank you, Charlie Cole Chafin, for running for Lieutenant Governor, and good luck to you. You were terrific. Bynum Gibson, my longtime friend Jimmy Lou Fisher, who was the coordinator of my campaign in the 1st Congressional District in 1978. We've been together a long time. Thank you, Jimmy Lou. I read an article in the paper today, our morning paper here, saying that if the past was any precedent, it might be a mixed blessing for Winston Bryant and Vic Snyder and Marion Barry and Ann Henry for me to be coming down here today, because Arkansas people didn't really like for the president to tell them how to vote. Well, I couldn't tell you how to vote when I was governor. I don't know how I'm starting out. Never occurred to me to tell you how to vote. I will say this, since he asked me for it, I'm going to give Vic Snyder my vote on Tuesday. I'll be here, and I'll be proud to vote for him. And I'll be proud to vote for Winston Bryant, and I wish I could vote for Marion and Ann. Let me say to all of you, you ought to vote for yourselves, your children, and your future on Tuesday. But you need to understand that while all 4 of these people are friends of mine, and I have worked with them, and I know them very well, what you really should be voting on
is what you want our country and this state to look like when we start that new century just 4 years from now. We're about to have a presidential election for the last president of the 20th century and the first president of the 21st century. And the stakes could hardly be greater. We're actually very fortunate because not only are the consequences large, but the choice is so clear. I really don't like a lot of what's happened in politics in the last several years. I don't like the fact that, especially when you get down toward the end and people get desperate, they think the only thing to do is to try to convince you that their opponent's no good. The truth is, since you all started me out 22 years ago, it has been my experience that most people who do the public's work are honest people. They work hard and they do what they think is right, virtually all the time, in both parties. That's been my experience. And what I want to talk to you about today is that there are honest differences here. You know, I worked with Representative Hutchison when he was in the state legislature. I liked him. We had a cordial relationship. Hillary and I send our prayers out to Tim and his wife for the welfare of their son. I know all of us feel that way without regard to party. We ought to get away from this idea that we have to demonize our opponents in order to clarify our differences. This is and I appreciate what Winston said about that, you know, but don't worry about me. Every time I get down, I remember when they start picking at me, I remember what Mark Twain said about a dog. Mark Twain said, every dog ought to have a few fleas. Keeps him from worrying so much about being a dog. Now, some days up there I have more fleas than I wish I did, but don't worry about that. Here's what the issue is. And you saw it in that budget fight we had when they shut the government down and I vetoed the budget. This is about two different ways of looking at how we are as a people and how we get into the future. They believe that we're better off being on our own. And if we do good things together, that's fine, but it ought to basically be a question of letting everybody just go out there and do the best they can. I believe that we do better when we help each other to have the tools to make the most of our own lives. Every politician I ever knew would try to give a speech every now and then trying to convince you that he or she was born in a log cabin that they built themselves. But the truth is, there's not a one of us standing here today who would be here if it weren't for the help of some other people. And I believe America is better when we work together to give everyone the tools to live up to the fullest of their God-given abilities, to keep our country a strong force for peace and freedom and prosperity, and to give us a chance to live together in one community. That's what I believe. And that's the difference. That's why the real issue is, should we say we're on our own, or should we build a bridge to the future we can all walk across together? That is the issue. That's the issue in all these Congress races. That's the issue in this Senate race. That is the issue. I think they believed what they were doing when they passed that budget. I think they thought it was a good thing to give people like me a tax cut, even though I didn't need it, and cut Medicare and Medicaid. Let me just say, those words may not mean much to people. What they tried to do was to end the standards for nursing home care that David Pryor spent his entire life working for. They thought that was an inappropriate thing for us to be doing together, saying that there are some things that every senior citizen and every nursing home and every place in America ought to know that they can get if the government is paying through the taxpayers' money to put them in the nursing homes. I think David Pryor was right, and they were wrong. They wanted to take away the guarantee. They wanted to take away the guarantee that we've given for 30 years to middle-class families who have family members with disabilities so they can care for them, they can live at home, they can work, and they can have a decent life. They wanted to forget about that guarantee. They wanted to take away the guarantee of health care we've given for poor women and their little infant babies. And I think it was wrong. They did. They wanted to cut the student loan program, cut Head Start, paralyze our ability to protect the environment, clean air and clean water. That's what they wanted to do, and I think they were wrong. But you have to decide whether they're right or not. Now, I read all this stuff in the press about how Arkansas is, you know, more Republican and more Democrat. Both parties are worried and all that kind of stuff. Let me tell you, when I went up there 5 years ago and 1 month from tomorrow, when I announce for president here in Little Rock, I've got a quote here of what I said. I said, I wanted to go to Washington to do a better job of the old-fashioned work of confronting the real problems of real people and pointing the way to a better future. More opportunity, more responsibility, a stronger community. Well, 4 years ago, the rest of the country took me on faith. You were the only people that knew exactly what you were doing. The rest of them took a chance. The rest of them took a chance. But when you think about which approach works, when you think about Ann Henry, who's been our friend forever, she and her husband Morris hosted Hillary and our wedding reception in their home, and I've been wondering how many votes it was going to cost them in the election, but they did a great thing for us, and we'll never forget it. When I think about Marion Barry, I don't know how many times that Dale and David and I have been in Marion Barry's home for the coon supper at Gillette, but he's been with us all the time. He did a superb job at the Agriculture Department. When I think about Vic Snyder and all the votes that he cast in the Arkansas State Senate to give our children a better future and our state a stronger economy and make our environment stronger. When I think about Winston Bryant and the work that he did as Secretary of State, as Lieutenant Governor, as Attorney General, all the work we did together, all those years that we worked together. And I realize that they believe in the approach, and now you know whether it worked or not. It's inconvenient for our friends in the Republican Party, but we do have 10.7 million more jobs than we had 4 years ago. It is inconvenient for them that this is a faster rate of job growth than under any Republican administration in 70 years. It's inconvenient. We have the lowest deficit of any great country in the world, the lowest it's been in America in 15 years. Our average unemployment rate is the lowest it's been in 20 years. Our average inflation rate's the lowest it's been in 30 years. We had the biggest decline in income inequality among working people in 27 years, the lowest rates of unemployment and inflation together, the so-called misery index, in 27 years. This approach is working. That's why you ought to send it to Congress. It is the right thing for America. We need to keep going on this track. We've had 4 years of declining crime rates. The crime rate in America is at a 10-year low. There are 2 million fewer people, nearly, off welfare than there were 4 years ago. Child support collections in America are up 50%, $4 billion a year. This approach is working. Now, it's interesting to me that right before this Congress had to go home and face the voters, they all of a sudden decided they liked my agenda. So now they're home running on the fact that even though they opposed it, finally we did raise the minimum wage for 10 million people. We passed a health care reform bill that says you can't have your health care taken away from you just because you changed jobs or somebody in your family's been sick. Said the insurance companies can't kick mothers and their newborn babies out of the hospital after a day. Those were good things. It is a good thing, but that's what we should have been doing all along. And I'm telling you, this is not, and let me just say this, one thing it isn't, this race, it is not about conservative or liberal. The crime bill we passed had 100,000 police. It had the death penalty for drug kingpins and people that kill police officers. It had 3 strikes and you're out. It also had, as you know, the Brady bill and the assault weapons ban. They made a lot of hay out of that in Arkansas. You remember 2 years ago? Now, you know they were going around Arkansas and said, oh, that Clinton's gone crazy. He went to Washington, now he's going to take your gun away. Well, it's been 2 years, and now we know there's not a single hunter in Arkansas that's lost a weapon, but 60,000 felons, fugitives, and stalkers didn't get handguns because of the Brady bill, and the assault weapons ban don't need to be on the street in Little Rock. They don't need to be here. Now we know. So vote for yourselves, but this approach will work. There's still a lot of things we have to do. Your vote, don't be deluded here. There are huge consequences to your vote. What would America look like? If Dale Bumpers is right, what would America look like if their budget had prevailed? If their budget had prevailed, it would have been a clear message, you're on your own. We're going to be more divided. Those of us that are well positioned, we're going to do better. And those who aren't, well, they'll do worse, and it's just tough. Now that's what would have happened. And when they shut the government down, they thought that Dale and David and Ray and I, they thought we'd wilt. They thought that the Democrats would just be miserable not having the government open every day. They were even willing to bring us to the point of default, the people in that Congress were, to wreck all the economic progress we'd made because they thought we'd wilt. And you know what I told them? I said, I'd a lot rather see the American people hurt for 20 or 30 days than for 20 or 30 years. You have at it. I'm not going to buy that budget. You can forget about it. Now you have to decide. But how you vote in these races will determine whether we do what I want to do, which is to balance the budget and still protect Medicare and Medicaid and education and the environment, or adopt their scheme of an even bigger tax cut, which would still raise taxes on 9 million of the hardest pressed working people in America and blow a hole in the deficit and require bigger cuts than the ones I vetoed. You have to decide. You have to decide whether we are going to continue to put 100,000 police on the street. It's an amazing thing. You ask the mayors that are here. This is amazing. First, they tried not to put 100,000 police on the street. Then they tried to do away with it in their budget. Then they tried to cut it back a third time. And I stopped them every time. I'd like to have somebody up there in Washington who believes in law enforcement and would like to make our streets safer. If we have 4 more years of declining crime, we might have every neighborhood, every street, every school, and every child in this country safe again. And that's what I want, and that's what they want. And I hope you'll give us a chance to do it. There's a lot more to do in health care. Our balanced budget plan has some things in health care reform that they'll never be able to do. But I've turned it in a balanced budget plan. Let families keep their health insurance for 6 months when they're between jobs. Put another 1 million children into the ranks of health insured. Free mammograms for women on Medicare. And a little help for respite care for the 1.7 million families who are courageously helping to care for family members with Alzheimer's disease. These are important things. They won't do it, and we will. If you want that done, you better vote for them. That's what's at stake here. But let me say this. Of all the issues, and you know them well, the biggest issue before us involves these children here, and that's the question of education. What is their plan for education? Abolish the Department of Education. Do you really want that? Do you believe America can afford to be the only great country in the world to start the 21st century with no one even sitting at the President's cabinet to speak for the children of America? That's their position. My position is hook every classroom in every rural school in Arkansas and every inner city school up to that information superhighway and give those kids access to world-class education. Open the doors of college education to all Americans. You want to talk about a tax cut, the most important tax cut we could give is to let people deduct the cost of a typical community college tuition from their tax bill. That would open 2 more years of education to every American. Let people deduct $10,000 a year for college tuition at any college in America. Then every young person and every grown-up who needs to go back to college could afford to go. That is the choice. And you just have to decide. And I'm telling you, when you go in there on Tuesday, when you talk to your friends and neighbors and you go back home, there are people here from all over this state, from all of our congressional districts. You tell them that it's exactly what is on the line here. Are we going to do this together, or are we going to be driven apart? You know, so much, when I left here, I couldn't have known exactly what challenges would confront me as president, in terms of foreign policy especially. I'm grateful that the United States has been a force for peace. I'm grateful that we've been able to open new markets for American products, and we're selling more American products than ever before. We're #1 in auto production now for the first time since the 1970s. I'm glad we've been able to do these things. But it's amazing how much time I have to spend with people around the world doing things that we try to teach our children not to do. People all over the world. You look at the Middle East or Bosnia or Haiti or Northern Ireland, or all those tribal wars in Africa and all this. What is this about? People hating each other because they're of different religions, different races, different ethnic groups, and different tribes. Everything you try to teach your kids not to do, you know, treat everybody with respect and define yourself in terms of what you believe, not who you can look down on. There are people all over the world now who are literally consumed with hatred for other people because they're in different groups. And if we get divided, that will happen more. That's why I spoke out so strongly against hating people who work for the federal government after the tragedy at Oklahoma City. That's why when all these church burnings occurred, we got on it and we tried to stop it. We tried to get after it. And that's why I want you to think about that too. How long were we held back in this state because black people and white people couldn't get along? How long? How long will we be held back in the 21st century if we say we're not going to work together, I want mine, you get yours, there's the future, I hope you make it. Hillary was right, it does take a village to raise our kids and to build our future. The world is changing in ways you can't imagine. Arkansas will change in ways you can't imagine. No one can fully foresee the implications. When I became president, 3 million people were making a living in their homes. Today, because of computers, 12 million people are making a living in their homes. 4 years from now, 30 million people will be making a living in their homes. In the last 4 years, we found 2 genes that cause breast cancer. And if we're lucky, we may be able to find enough genetic information not only to cure breast cancer, but to prevent it. We're using a lot of these satellite sophisticated imaging technologies now to beam them into bodies to see if we can find out what's wrong with people before any of their problems get out of hand. We just found out that we could make a laboratory animal with its spine severed have movement in its lower limbs by transferring the nerves from the legs to the spine. None of this has ever been done before. We're building a supercomputer, the government is, with IBM that'll do more calculations in 1 second than you can do on a handheld calculator in 30,000 years. I'm telling you, the world is changing. And for us to go back to the old politics that the other side is preaching, trying to convince people that their opponents don't share American values, that they're aliens from outer space, that everything the government ever did was wrong, is nuts. We have to stand up for a bright future. The best days of this country are still ahead, but we'll only achieve them. We will only achieve those days if we define carefully what we should do together. But I'll say again, it's not about liberal and conservative. I want you to tell your friends and neighbors this when you go home. We have reduced the size of the government to its smallest size since Kennedy was president, more than the last 2 Republican administrations did. We eliminated more government regulations and more government programs than the 2 Republican administrations did. We privatized more government operations than the 2 Republican administrations did. This is not about liberal or conservative. We have run by far the most fiscally conservative government, and we've done more to stand against crime, and we've stuck up for this country and having a strong foreign policy. I think the record will stand on its own. This is not what that's about. This is about whether you're going to be diverted and divided, or whether we're going to find common ground and build that bridge to the 21st century together. You've got enough sense to figure out how to talk to your friends and neighbors about that between now and Tuesday. Don't let the people of Arkansas be diverted from the real issue. This country's better off, and this state's better off than it was 4 years ago. It's going to be better off 4 years from now if we stay on the right track to build that bridge to the 21st century. Thank you, and God bless you all.